Hello, my name is Jonathan and I'd like to welcome you back to my channel, Stronger After VSG. I had the vertical sleeve gastrectomy surgery in February of 2021. That puts me at about 8 months post-op right now, and I just ran a half marathon. If you'd like to hear a little bit about why I run, the training I did for my half marathon, what things were like on race day, and what comes next for me, then I hope you stick around. I'm 36 years old. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm 6 foot tall and my highest recorded weight was 360 pounds. I don't give what my current weight is, and if you want to know why that is, then I encourage you to watch my welcome video. Instead, I like to share a picture of what I look like now. This is a selfie that I took wearing the vest that I talked about in my 8-month update video, and every time I put this vest on, I feel good. I know that I'm leaning into every single Pacific Northwest stereotype there is when it comes to fashion, but the truth is I'm still finding my own fashion sense right now, and right now what matters to me is that I feel good in what I wear, and that's exactly what this vest does, and I'm incredibly happy that I bought it. I'd like to start out talking a little bit about why I run. Before my bariatric surgery, and even right after my bariatric surgery, running wasn't anywhere near on my radar. It wasn't something that I wanted to do. It wasn't something that I thought I was capable of doing. It wasn't until watching some YouTube videos of two people who had used endurance sports as a way to supplement their bariatric journey that I thought that it might be something I could be capable of. In particular, Foodie turned Sleevey has an incredible playlist where she shares her training and how she completed a Ironman 70.3 after her VSG procedure. I encourage you all to watch that playlist. She is so brave and so transparent. I find myself coming back to her videos over and over again because I think they give me a glimpse into what I hope my bariatric surgery could be. And I'm so grateful that she has made a commitment to share her journey with all of us. The other channel that inspired me was The Losing Lawyer. She also did a triathlon right after her procedure. Her triathlon was a little sooner after the procedure than Foodie turned Sleevey, and it made me think that where I was at in my procedure that I could compete and train for an endurance athlete as well, and I'm really, really grateful for her for posting her series on doing her sprint triathlon. The thing that I love about running, the thing that keeps me coming back and back to running, is that it has given me a freedom from the scale. I remember being in the middle of my running journey and thinking to myself, I don't care how much I weigh as long as I'm able to run 8 miles. And that's what the surgery has been for me. The surgery was a chance for me to get to a place in my fitness where I could run 8 miles on my own. And now that I can do it, I feel like the surgery's done its job. And now it's on me to do the rest. I need to maintain an active lifestyle. I need to make good food choices. And I need to be committed to getting back on track whenever I hit a speed bump or get off plan. And I'm really grateful for that. I'm grateful for my surgeon. I'm grateful for this surgery, that I'm in a place in my journey now where I can run 8 miles. And the thing about running 8 miles is that it's a way for me to celebrate my body. It's a way for me to feel like this was the point of everything. To feel my body move, to feel my body recover from doing a pretty strenuous, pretty incredible thing. And I ran 8 miles this morning and it felt so good. And I am just incredibly happy to be in a place where I can do that. And that feeling keeps me coming back to running. And that joy, it's a durable joy. It's a joy that's motivating. It's a joy that's sustainable. And I think it's a joy that's going to last for a long time in my life and be a companion, a friend, an asset to me as I continue on with this health journey. I want to say that there are a few things that needed to happen in order for me to be able to run a half marathon 8 months after my surgery. The first thing is that I had a complication-free surgery, which I'm incredibly grateful for. The next is that I went through my dietary progression very smoothly. One of the things about training for a long distance event is you need to be able to fuel your body, and if I didn't progress through my diet smoothly or had some sort of dietary issues, I don't think this would have worked as well. And then the last thing, maybe the most important thing, is that I had a personal trainer. I had someone who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. I also had someone to tell me to pump the brakes when I was training too hard. And I am so grateful for her. So grateful for the role that she has played in my life. And I don't think that I could have done this half marathon if it wasn't for her or the other two things that I talked about. Let's talk a little bit about what training was like. Honestly, I didn't think that I was ready to start running when I did. I brought up the idea of running with my trainer when I was at about 300 pounds. I had lost about 50 pounds at the time, and I told my trainer when I hit 280 pounds, I would like to start running. And my trainer looked at me and said, "Why don't you just start now, John? Why wait? I think that you're capable of it." And I was worried about my hips, I was worried about my knees, I was worried about my ankles, I was worried about hurting myself. And my trainer convinced me that I could do this safely, that I was capable of listening to my body and that I should just give it a try. And so we found a Couch to 5K program and I followed it, and it went really, really smooth, and I had a lot of fun and I enjoyed it. My early runs were on a treadmill, and I think that's a really smart way to go. It gives you a lot of control about your pace and your timing. And eventually I moved on and started doing longer runs outside, and part of that was probably me just being more confident and feeling like I looked like a runner while I was outside. When I started running, I would do running and walking intervals. I'd run 1 minute and walk 1 minute. But eventually I've changed that interval, and for this half marathon I ran 4 minutes and walked 1 minute. And I think that's been really key to my success in running and my prevention of injuries, is being able to maintain that interval. Some of the challenges that I had early on in my running journey were loose skin and GI issues. On my very, very first treadmill run, I weighed about 300 pounds, so I'd lost about 50 pounds, and that meant that I had a lot of loose skin, or jiggly body you might say, on my chest and stomach. And when I tried to run on the treadmill, my body moved in ways that hurt. It was incredibly painful, and I remember thinking to myself after that run, I can't do this. And it made me really sad. I felt like I had the will, the desire to do the running, but it wasn't going to work if I had to endure this pain of my body moving while I was running. So afterwards, I tried to tap into my own inner resilience, to tap into my own little problem solver, and eventually I found a good solution, and that is that I wear a compression vest when I run. And the compression vest isn't perfect, it doesn't hold everything in place perfectly, but it does make my body move in ways that's not painful, and I'm incredibly grateful that compression vests exist and that they've made my running journey so much more comfortable, if not possible in the first place. The next issue that I had to deal with were GI issues. These didn't come up until I started running longer than 5 miles, but after running 5 miles, I started developing this sudden and urgent need to use the bathroom, which can be really uncomfortable when you're running out in public on a trail in the middle of nowhere. And thankfully I haven't had any major disasters happen, but there were a number of times that things got really uncomfortable, where I felt a lot of cramping and a lot of GI distress. Initially I thought this was being caused by a form of dumping, because they developed when I started eating carbohydrate gummies to do some mid-run fueling. But I don't think that's the case anymore. And the reason for that is I went on some long runs without mid-run fueling and I still developed GI issues. What I think is actually happening is something called runner's belly that's pretty common in the running community. It's caused by a number of things. In particular, it's a lack of blood flow to your GI system. When you're running for long periods of time, your blood flow is moved to your legs where they're doing a lot of work. It's also caused by the repeated bumping of your stomach going up and down while you're running. And it's also caused by hormone signals that are being caused in your gut. And I haven't found a good solution to this problem yet, and I still have GI emergencies that happen to me from time to time while I'm doing my long runs in my training. For now, I've found a practical solution, and that is I scout out running routes that have bathrooms every mile after mile 5. And thankfully, I have a few of those routes near where I live, and that's come in handy. And it's one of those things where it's embarrassing, it's uncomfortable, but it's not something that I'm going to let stop me from reaching my goals. And it's something that I am committed to overcoming, and I'm grateful that I've committed to doing that. When I did my Couch to 5K and completed it and felt really good about where my running was at, I moved on to a half marathon training plan. I used a beginner's runner's world training plan, and I'll link to that below. It's a 12-week running plan that is geared to get you from running about 3 miles at a time to get you to run 13.1 miles on race day. The longest training run is 11 miles, which I think worked really well. That is exactly what I did and made me feel very prepared for race day. When I found this training plan, I committed to doing every single run, and one of the things that I am most proud of is that I hit every single one of these runs. I felt like things might not work out how I want on race day, but as long as I'm committed to doing the training, that's what matters to me. And that's what happened. The training mattered to me and I did it. You can see the progression of my runs here. I love the fact that my Apple Watch keeps track of all my workouts, and I'm able just to look this up and share it with you. In June, I ran 13 miles. In July, I ran 22 miles. In August, I ran 52 miles. In September, I ran 69 miles, which is insane to me. And then in October, I ran 91 miles, which just blows my mind. And I can't believe that my body is capable of doing that, and that I was able to do that so soon after my procedure. I want to talk a little bit about what it was like on race day. I ran the Columbia Gorge Half Marathon. It's known as America's Most Scenic Run. And immediately I was terrified of this race when I learned about it. It has 1,000 feet in elevation gain, and that is a lot of running uphill. On my training routes, I have a hill that I run over, and it is 500 feet, and it is a lot of running uphill, and I could not imagine when I started training for this being able to run 1,000 feet. Thankfully, as part of my training, I ran up and over my hill twice, so I knew exactly what it was like to run 1,000 feet of elevation gain, and it is a challenge, let me tell you. The night before the race, I stayed at a hotel, the Columbia Gorge Hotel and Spa, and it was amazing. This was a gift from my parents, and my parents also stayed at the hotel. They wanted to cheer me on at the finish line from this race, and staying there helped me to avoid a long commute into Hood River on race morning, and I'm really grateful that I was able to do this. It was beautiful and it was peaceful, but even with all of that, I still felt really nervous. And to help me out, I put on all my racing gear and took a selfie, and I'm going to show that here. Looking at this photo, I'm able to tap in and just remember how nervous I was. I wasn't nervous that I could finish the race. I wasn't nervous about my fitness. I was honestly most nervous about the bathroom situation. I didn't know how my body was going to be able to cope or respond, and whether bathrooms would be available when I needed them. I was also a little nervous about the weather situation. The forecast called for it to be pretty rainy, and I was like, there are lots of different spectrums when it comes to being rainy, and I was hoping it was going to be a light drizzle, and I felt really nervous. So to help calm myself down, I had a Sazerac, and it did the trick. And it was really nice to just sip on that cocktail and then go to bed and have a really great night's sleep. On the morning of the race, I showed up early. I was able to warm up. My goal going into this race was to run it at a 12-minute per mile pace, and so I decided to start running with the 10 to 12 minute per mile wave, and my race started really smooth. Usually the first mile is one of the hardest miles for me. It's just hard for me to get into the mindset of running, but after the first mile, I get into autopilot and really enjoy the experience. When I scouted out the route for this race, I knew that the first 3 miles were going to be incredibly challenging. A lot of the elevation gain is in the first 3 miles, and I told myself if I can make it through the first 3 miles, then I got this. I could do it all. And so I got up, ran really hard for the first 3 miles, got to the first aid station, and felt so good that I took a selfie. And you can see here, it's a gorgeous route. It runs right along the Columbia River on the Marco Hatfield Trail, and the scenery was gorgeous, and it was fun to be with a whole bunch of people running this race, celebrating what their bodies was capable of. I felt really good all the way up to the halfway turnaround point at and then started running back. When I was at the end of my training, I usually would hit a wall at about 8 miles. After 8 miles, my running would be really hard. During this race, I hit the wall at about 10 miles. And at 10 miles, it also started to rain really hard. And so I had to just tell myself I only have a 5K left. And I felt like I had a 5K left within me. part of the reason that I did this race, part of the reason that I'm challenging myself is to get outside of my comfort zone. And when the rain hit, when I hit the wall, I closed my eyes and I pictured this graphic that says, when you step outside your comfort zone, that's where the magic happens. And I want to feel magic in my life. And I did. On this race, I felt magic on those final 3 miles. The way that I was able to run, the confidence I felt, the way I was overcoming the adversity of the rain, it was an incredible feeling. And I will always be searching for those moments of magic and hope to share them here with you. I finished strong. At the finish line, my parents took a video of me finishing, and I'm going to share that here. I will say that having soggy feet does take a little bit away from the runner's high that I was hoping to feel. And so right after the race, when I finished, I kind of just felt like going home, and so I just packed up and drove home that day. I got an instantaneous text when I crossed the finish line, and I learned right at that finish line that I had ran that race at a 11:07 pace. That was despite the elevation gain, despite the rain, and I cannot believe that I ran the race that fast. That is faster than I thought capable, I thought my body possible. And it was another magical moment when I learned that. So what comes next for me? I gave my everything for that race, but when I crossed the finish line, I felt like I had more within me. I didn't think that doing this half marathon was the limit of what I was capable of, and I still believe that I can do more things. I recovered fairly quickly from the race. I walked into work the next day, and I went to the gym the next day doing some upper body strength training and felt great. I was running a recovery run 2 days later, and in general, I felt really good after that race. Since then, I've signed up for a half marathon in December. That's about a month and a half away, and I'm looking forward to beating my pace that I ran the Columbia Gorge half marathon at. I'm also planning on running a half marathon in March to celebrate getting through the cold, wet season in a healthy way and to start training and picking my running back up again. In the meantime, I'm going to focus on my strength training. I had taken a step back from improving my big 3 lifts, my squat, my deadlift, and my bench press, but now that I'm done with my running, I'm going to start training harder with my resistance training. I'm really looking forward to that. I also think I'm going to set a lofty goal for this coming summer. I am going to run a triathlon. I think I'm going to run a sprint triathlon early in the summer and then try to do an Olympic triathlon later in the summer. And running a triathlon terrifies me. And that makes me really excited. I am ready to face things that terrify me and to overcome them and to tap into my personal strength and resilience. Right now, the things that terrify me are that a triathlon is a lot of biking and I'm not a biker. The other thing that terrifies me is that you cannot listen to music while you're doing a triathlon, and my playlist is what got me through my half marathon, and having to run and bike without music is terrifying. The other thing that terrifies me is that the triathlon's going to be an open water swim, and I've never done that before. And so I'm going to have to do some training and to get comfortable and do my best and to show up for myself and to learn something new. And I don't know what comes after that. I'm just kind of excited to see where I'm gonna be along my journey and enjoy overcoming these small accomplishments that I hope to stay consistent in my life. So with that, I'd like to thank you for listening to my video. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. My email is in my channel description. And with that, I'd like to close this video by reminding everyone to be kind to themselves and to be kind to each other.